how to thrive this Thanksgiving. If you are living in the States, tomorrow is Thanksgiving, and I've been having this conversation with clients for the past couple weeks about how to navigate all of the dynamics in terms of food and relationships for Thanksgiving. But really, this is applicable for the rest of the holiday season. It could be any holiday meal that you're having with family or friends or different parties. Anytime that there's a lot of food out and it's a very food-centric event, you can use these tips that we're going to talk about. I'm going to make it a short and sweet podcast. I promise. I pinky promise it's going to be short. And a couple weeks ago, I actually recorded a podcast called Surviving the Void. And the void is really these last 8 weeks of the year. So I cover a lot more topics in that podcast. If you're curious, it was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. But this one is specifically going to be about food and how to not just navigate that, but how to thrive. But before we get into that, I want to welcome you guys back to Undefined, the podcast about the space between evidence and expansion. I'm your host, Lauren Conlon. I've been a nutrition coach for the past 12 years, and I'm currently a therapist in training. And this is what I call a variety show. So sometimes we're going to be talking about physical health, mental health, things I'm working on with my clients, research, just stuff that I want to talk about. It really is a big variety. And I do want to make this as interactive as possible. So if you guys have any questions or comments, drop them below, or there is an anonymous Google link in the show notes. So definitely fill out with as much detail as you want in there because it is anonymous. But I promise it was going to be short. So let's get into it now. First, and this might seem obvious, but many people do not do this. Don't go into the meal hungry. Okay, don't go into Thanksgiving hungry. Nothing good happens when we're hungry. I can almost guarantee that nobody does their best work when they're hungry. Like you go to the grocery store, what happens? Things just end up in the cart that probably shouldn't be there, that you didn't even want or have intentions to be there. Or you're like, you know what, I'm just going to not eat a lot before this meal. And then appetizers come out and it is just game over. So on Thanksgiving, a lot of times this can happen for a couple reasons. One, that's two fingers. One, many people will be like prepping food or traveling or just like really chaotic days. So they're not really eating a lot because they're not thinking about it. But then two, oftentimes, even if this is subconscious, we're like, hey, we're going to eat a lot later, probably shouldn't eat too much earlier. And while I understand that sentiment in the sense of like balancing, calories for the day, if you go into the meal too hungry, you will not make good decisions. So typically what I recommend is having at least one whole meal because traditionally many people eat Thanksgiving early. It kind of just depends on your family, your culture. So if you're eating a very like early dinner, you maybe only need to have one meal. But if you're having kind of like a normal time, I would at least plan to have a normal breakfast/brunch and some kind of possibly lunch, depending on what time the meal is, or just like a protein shake, protein something. And that way you're going to go in, you're going to have enough protein earlier to be more satiated, and you're not just going to be ravenous. And also subconsciously, you're telling your body, hey, we had food earlier. Like we're okay. We're not trying to starve ourselves into this meal. You don't need to earn this meal or feel like you can only, quote unquote, indulge if you sacrifice yourself earlier and don't eat anything. So make sure to have at least a meal, but probably more likely a meal and like a protein something. Next would be get in some kind of morning movement. And this is going to look very different for everyone depending on where they're at and what they have access to. But it could be anything. It could be a lift, could be a cardio session. I know some people do like a turkey trot, which I think is a hilarious name, but some people will go do like a 5K walk, run in the morning, like if that's like in your area, or even if you just go for a walk, literally just do something. It doesn't have to be super intense or super crazy because again, most people are going to be pressed for time. They have a lot going on. And if you're traveling or you're with family or friends you haven't seen in a long time, you want to be spending it with them. So it might be part of your dynamic that you guys all train together, or it could not be. You might be like the only person in that group that is training. So in that example, you're going to want to do something that is not going to put anyone else out or be really time consuming. So something like 20, 30 minutes, you're going to feel really, really good. And also doing this movement will help not just with the caloric offset, because really that's not even what I care too much about. It's more so doing something for yourself, feeling grounded, and having better digestion with more movement throughout the day. Any kind of movement is going to be better than nothing, even if it's 20 minutes. And I just say morning movement because let's be realistic. Most people, as the day progresses, are going to start getting deeper into cooking or getting ready or, driving, maybe having some drinks, whatever it might be. You're not probably at 2 p.m. going to be like, yeah, let me go get this like crazy workout session. Be realistic with yourself. Get something in short in the morning, and particularly something that is going to be easy to implement no matter where you are. Now, these next 2 points are things that I've talked a lot with my clients about these past 2 weeks because we've been having conversations about Thanksgiving. For some people, they're like, hey, Thanksgiving is not a thing for me. Like, I don't really care about the food, never really been a problem. But I have a lot of clients who have struggled, whether it's with food or all the emotional dynamics or just really like the whole holiday itself. And we've had a lot of conversations around this. So really, really important next 2 points. First would be do not graze. And grazing is so easy to do, especially at events like this. But really, this is why I said it's for any holiday meal, because grazing is just a big part of larger holiday meals or gatherings or parties, whatever it is. There's a lot of food, and sometimes the food is coming out slowly too. So you're like, oh, let me grab this, let me grab that, let me do this. And what ends up happening is we think in our mind, oh, I just had a couple pieces of this. But really, if we were to add it up, it's more than likely several servings of something. Like how many times, and let's be honest, let's all reflect on this because I've done this. So this is, again, not a judgment. This is a let's all reflect together. How many times you've been like, oh, I'll just break off a piece of this cookie or a piece of this, whatever, cracker, et cetera, et cetera. But you went back like 5 times. And so really, it was not just a couple of pieces. It was 3 whole ass cookies, which there's nothing wrong with 3 cookies, but what happens when we graze is we tell ourselves, oh, I just had a couple nibbles. No, you didn't. You actually had a full serving of something. So my recommendation here is try not to graze and instead get surveillance everything, take a survey of what is out and actually put it on a plate and say, I'm going to have as much as I want of this, but I'm going to put it on this plate and then I'm going to look at it with my eyes and I'm going to see, okay, I have this, and this, and then I'm going to eat it. And the reason why that helps is because it's way more satiating. And what I found is that it's less about not having something, but it's more about saying, hey, I'm allowing myself to have this. And now I'm actually going to be satisfied with what I've eaten instead of, oh yeah, I just took a couple nibbles. Everybody has done that, and it always ends up the same exact way. You don't feel like you had a lot of something, but you actually, in reality, had way more than you had intended. The next point is to decide your worth it. And when I say worth it, which is not good grammar, but it's the only way that I can really relay this information properly and effectively, is you have to decide what is worth it to you to have and say, this is my thing that I'm going to have the most of. Because realistically, there's going to be a lot of food that is out. And some of it you're going to like, some of it you're going to love. The stuff that you love, that is what you want to have more of. And the stuff that you're kind of just like, whatever, it's there. That is what you have to really moderate and say, okay, I don't love this. It's not really that worth it to me. I'm just going to have a little taste of it. But what ends up happening when we don't have this awareness going into the meal is let's say you're a sweet person. Let's say you are all about the desserts and, the chocolate martini and the cakes and the pies and whatever it might be. That's what you want to have and deem as your worth it. But earlier in the day, all of the savory stuff comes out. There's appetizers, there's, cheese, crackers, spreads, insert whatever it is. And you just start eating a lot of it. And this kind of goes to the other point too with the grazing. Oh, I'm just going to have a little bit of it. And you just kind of pick and pick and pick. And in reality, you actually have quite a bit of that. But now you're like, oh, I'm kind of full, but I didn't even really have what I wanted. So now I'm just going to, whatever, I'm just going to keep eating and I'm going to probably now overeat because I feel bad because I had this. See, it's this really interesting kind of spiral that happens really, really quickly. And this conversation is not necessarily about calories or, your goals, because everybody is going to have different goals, but it just comes down to how do we moderate ourselves and how do we feel good about our choices? And the reality is we always have to moderate things no matter what. And this is the strategy that I use with clients so that they're able to enjoy the things that they want the most and try some of the other stuff, but not leave feeling overly stuffed or have any food guilt around it. So choose your worth it's. Everybody has theirs that they know. Like, okay, my mom makes this every year, my dad makes that, my aunt brings it, whatever it is. Have your worth it. And that's what also helps too without the grazing, and really kind of taking a full survey of like, what is here? What do I really, really want? And even when it comes down to like the actual meal itself, say, okay, let me actually look at the table, see what is here, and say, okay, I'm going to just try a little bit of this, but oh, no. That stuffing is my jam. So I'm going to have a little bit of everything else, but like stuffing is where I'm going to predominantly be having like a larger portion, or probably seconds, because why not? I don't ever eat stuffing outside of Thanksgiving. So it's one of those things where that to me is a worth it. And I've determined that. And then I kind of, moderate myself with some of the other things a lot easier. And then I can confidently say, this is really what I want. I'm going to fully enjoy it. And that goes into our last and final point. Whatever your decision is, own it, no matter what. A lot of times when it comes to food guilt, people are riddled with this because they aren't really making conscious choices. Again, go back to that kind of grazing appetizer example. I keep like using my hand here as if like there's like a buffet table next to me and there's nothing. It's just like my walking pad and a door. But, using that example again, maybe you had that, you didn't really want it. You're like, why am I doing this? And then now you feel bad and you're like, whatever. In that moment, it's already done. What has happened, happened. So make the decision moving forward. This is what I want. If you want to go into Thanksgiving and say, you know what, I have certain goals and I really don't want to do X, Y, or Z, follow through with that. Be strong in that decision. If you want to say, you know what, I don't give two shits about calories, about moderating myself, I want to go ham today. Do that. Go for it. Either decision, both totally different kind of things. Just own it. I remember one year I was peaking for a bodybuilding show and on Thanksgiving, and I made the decision that this is what I'm going to be doing. I knew what was entailed in that decision, and I stuck with it. And there was literally not even like I wish I, nope, this is what I'm doing. And there's been other years where I've said, you know what, like all of this looks amazing. I don't care if I feel bloated and gross later. I am just going for it. I'm having whatever I want. Both of those things are extremely valid, and nobody can determine that besides you. So I really hope that you guys, no matter what you decide, you own it, because that is going to help eliminate a lot of that residual food guilt. And that way you can wake up on Friday and just have a great weekend and just kind of keep it rolling. I really wanted to make this a shorter podcast because I know that there is so much going on this time of year, especially with travel and, family gatherings and such. So I hope these tips were helpful for you guys. And like I said, even if it's not for Thanksgiving, it's for any holiday meal. These 5 points are still just as effective. So come back and reference this whenever you need to. I hope you all have a fantastic Thanksgiving and holiday season. If you have any questions or comments, drop them below. And like I mentioned, if you have any anonymous questions or suggestions you want to have answered here as well, you can drop that in the show notes.